thinking about my campaign experience, feels a lot like thinking about my deployments to Afghanistan. I it was at once the most optimistic experience and also the most pessimistic experience, often 15 times in the same day. The optimistic part was just these Americans who came together and wanted a better vision for our country. And I think of all the volunteers and the sweat and time and effort and financial support and how we started with zero and ended up with just this movement. That's the optimistic part. The pessimistic part was it felt like a front row seat to all the ways our social fabric is being ripped apart or maybe even eviscerated. This is before the triple crises we are facing right now. And whether that social fabric is being ripped apart politically, but also culturally, geographically, socioeconomically. I think a lot about the relationships and the people. I've been thinking a lot about Eric Lowery and Harriet Lowery. I was reading some of the comments and obituaries, and I got to know a lot. I'm just thinking about a man who served in Vietnam in the military and comes to the Eastern Shore, and he was a unbelievable leader and had every reason to want to be angry at those institutions, but instead he just responded with love and compassion. And I think about the moment we're living now, and there's obviously a tremendous amount of work we all need to do. I felt unbelievably adopted from the folks in the Eastern Shore, especially Easton, especially Chestertown and Talbot and Kent, but everywhere on the Eastern Shore. Come here's, from here's, and I walk around with a feeling of immense responsibility. And also there's a direct line from my experience on the campaign trail to what I'm doing now. I was surprised, as a military veteran, I really was shocked that the most frequently asked question on the campaign trail, and we were in a lot of living rooms because we were just this can-do and insurgent campaign, was national service, and it was always positive. It was, how do we have more national service? Why can't we get there? How do we get there? And that really surprised me because I had joined the military and served 4 combat tours in Afghanistan, Army Ranger, but I thought I was more alone in that, and that really surprised me. So this opportunity came up to lead Service Year Alliance. I think it's one of these issues, the country's in trouble, and this is before this triple crisis, that's economic and public health and social. I think exactly where I'm supposed to be, and I am really proud to be working on an issue that I think, given how much trouble we're in, is one of the ways we can repair our country and bring it back together. There's more energy and momentum around federal legislation right now than there's been in over a decade. There's a major bill right now. It's called the CORE Act, spelled like the Marine Corps or Peace Corps. And it's co-sponsored by Senator Chris Coons from neighboring Delaware and Senator Roger Wicker, who's from Mississippi. And it calls for a massive expansion. It'd be 600,000 new service year positions. Right now there are 7 Republican co-sponsors and 7 Democratic co-sponsors. That's approximately 7 more Republican co-sponsors than there's been in about a decade. So it really is a once in a generation moment here. In light of COVID, we as an organization took a step back and did some very deliberate thinking. National service right now is doing exactly what we think it ought to be doing to help crisis response and help with the economic recovery. Mm-hmm. To give you an example, there are several governors right now who are using their national service corps members to do really important things, such as contact tracing. And one of the things we are doing is we've put together a rapid response learning cohort. And there are 3 or 4 governors who have already figured it out. They have their core members doing contact tracing as we speak. There are 4 to 10 other states that are 1 or 2 obstacles away. So one thing we do really well at our nonprofit is convene learning communities. So we're bringing people together. How do we unlock? We're going to unlock those 4 to 10 states, and then we'll pivot as appropriate to the next thing, whether it's food insecurity or learning loss, because we know education is going to look completely different in the fall. So there are also, if you look around the country right now, you have National Service Corps members doing things like contact tracing. They are delivering food to isolated elderly populations. They are erecting sanitized medical facilities. They are on the front lines, and they're doing exactly what we think they should be doing. The CORAC would get us to 250,000 service years. That would be phenomenal. That would be a huge milestone. The bill that Senator Ted Kennedy and Senator Orrin Hatch in 2009, the Serve America Act, that was the goal, to 250. We would like to get to 1 million. We think 1 million young people in service would represent the tipping point. If you look at the data about the number of young people who would do a year of service if they had the opportunity, there's a huge supply and demand problem here. So if you look at the number of actual positions right now, there's about 75,000 available across the country. If you look at the number of young people who would do it, they're just way out of whack. The other part is cultural. General McChrystal, our founding chairman, he says it really well. One of his visions for the future is, say, 5 or 10 years from now, there are a handful of 30-year-olds, and they're at the bar and they're talking, and one person says, "Where did you do your year of service?" And 3 of the people in the group talk about their year of service, and the 4th person didn't do it, and they end up looking at their shoes because they're embarrassed, because that's the expectation piece. And we think if we get to 1 million, that would be about 1/4 of young people who enter into emerging adult status, 18 to 28 every year. And we think that would be the tipping point. So where do we want to be in 5 to 10 years? It would be 1 million.